Hold on to your wallets because we got another one. Hello everyone, welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we're going to talk about 5 reasons you shouldn't back Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. Nope, Clash of Eternia. CMON's Masters of the Universe on Kickstarter right now. Why they had to make those two names so similar? I do not know. That's not one of the reasons. I do think this one does look better than Archon's Masters of the Universe, but still may not be necessary. Or maybe it is. You'll have to tell me. Now, just to be clear, I only do this series on games that are absolutely demolishing their funding goals, which realistically is going to be every CMON game from here on out. And this one just crossed the $1.1 million Canadian threshold after 3 days. Usually I wait till it's about $1 million US, but let's be real, come on, it's gonna get there. So I might as well put it out now. Although to be fair, I really expected this game to be past the $1 million US threshold in the first day. I'm surprised it hasn't. I felt like the Masters of the Universe fervor that seems to be pervading everywhere right now would have sent this skyrocketing immediately. And it seems so strange to frame it this way because this is already a smashing success. Certainly anything over $1 million is a massive success. I hope to be a massive success myself one day. Some would say even just making your funding goal is a massive success. And honestly, in this market that is inundated with Kickstarter after Kickstarter, yeah, hitting your funding goal is pretty extraordinary. I guess that I just personally overestimated the effect that the nostalgia would have upon this campaign, or more likely the market has been split because Europe can't get in on this action. Or maybe it's because CMON has such a lofty position in my eyes as one of the biggest behemoths on Kickstarter that even $1 million doesn't seem like that large an amount, which is strange to say. But in their last 10 board game campaigns, only 2 didn't break that $1 million barrier, and only 2 more didn't break that $3 million barrier. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that my goal is not to pick on the little guy, and CMON is certainly not the little guy. My primary goal for these sorts of videos, if you're new to the series, is not even telling you not to back. It's to make sure that you are still as excited when the box arrives at your door as you were when you pledged for it a year and a half ago. As I am for Ankh. Oh, I can't wait to unbox this. But you all come first. So first, let's talk about the positives of this campaign. And that way I can defend myself when CMON fans come hunting for my head for me telling them not to get themselves a little toy. But there's a lot that I like about this game, a dangerous amount for my wallet, actually. And one of the major things is that the rulebooks already feel streamlined and considered, which is awesome. The temporary rulebook is an easy read, and you can already see all the little tweaks they've done to balance the game at various player counts. And this sort of rule consideration is never a guaranteed thing. Trudvang had to rewrite its entire rule set just to turn a bag building push your luck into a Gloomhaven skin. So in the game, as you may know, one person will play the controller, who the other team of heroes will face off against. But the player count for that hero team can be varied. At 3 players on the team, there's this extra strategy activation card where you can choose which character gets an extra action, which immediately makes me want to play at that player count. But then when there's only 1 person on the hero team, for every single one of your moves, you get an additional action, which makes me immediately want to play at that player count as well. And while I haven't had a chance to test out these ramifications, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of testing even after the campaign is over, I can immediately appreciate them existing now. And it gives me confidence that this product has been pretty well thought out at its current stage of development, which is great, which gets me pumped about the game. So in case you haven't read any of the rulebooks, it's a scenario-based one versus all, where you'll have different goals each time. And the one person playing the controller will throw minions and specific little baddies at you, saving up power for their own special moves. Power being the resource used by all to do stuff, do your special actions. And then there's going to be a team of heroes who are all trying to stop the villain and who grow stronger as the game progresses, unlocking unique skills, carefully planning who they activate when each round, and if you go later on, you get more power, which you can spend on more actions. aka the better moves you can pull off against whatever enemy you are facing. There's this little note in the rulebook which I absolutely love, the idea that misdirection can happen when the heroes are planning their moves, because they have to talk amongst each other to say, okay, I'm going to go first, you should go second. But if they're able to develop a system between each other and throw the evil person off, and the evil controller is then planning for something different, I just think that opportunity for mind games is something that gets me really excited. I don't think it'll happen that much because the controller kind of commits all of their actions first and then the heroes commit their actions, so it kind of negates the advantage that the controller would have being able to listen in on their plans, but I still like that it was thought of and it was brought forward as a suggestion. I also really love that the different skills are unlocked, and when you unlock your second tier skill, you choose a side and you're that power for the rest of the game. That sounds cool. And I also love that any power that the hero team spends on these abilities will get to be used again by the controller. So it's this juggle of how much power do you throw, because it's only going to be sent back your way as well. And I feel like I can see how that balances the game and makes sure that the controller has an equal number of actions, and then I can also see how it's going to be an interesting push and pull of when to activate things and when to hold off. Plus, there are two guys, one called Clamp Champ and one called Snout Spout. I mean, I was never a big Masters of the Universe, I'm not versed in the lore, but just these two people existing, makes me want to back it on the spot. Someone please enlighten me as to their purpose in the show and the story and the world. And honestly, the more I think about the mechanics, the more I am potentially drawn into them. But there are reasons why you may want to think twice before jumping into the fray. And maybe you're feeling a strain on your wallet and you're not sure if this is the right decision. And plus, that's what we all came here for. So here are the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Masters of the Universe, CMON of Eternia. And starting us off is reason number 5, as these things go, which is you shouldn't back if you have issues not going all in. Now, this was my point way back when I talked about X-Men United, and I think it still holds true and will probably hold true for every CMON campaign, to be honest. There are going to be a lot of expansions and a lot of extra plastic you can get and a lot of extra stuff that you really, really, really don't need. As per usual with any CMON campaign, I always think that the best value is just the base pledge. I think you usually see diminishing returns after that. Plus, their all-in pledge is going to be at least $300, probably closer to $400 is my guess, because they've already started at the $220 mark and they haven't revealed any additional add-ons yet. But it's really evident by the 2 different pledge levels and the disparity between who has backed what that our natural inclination is to want the bigger pledge. For some people, they need the bigger pledge because we're worried that, no, this expansion has everything needed to make the game perfect, and if we don't get that, then our game will be trash, unplayable, and we might as well not even get the base game at all, but we want the game, so we have to get everything. It must be incomplete, otherwise why would these expansions even exist, right? I completely understand this feeling. And I've seen so many Facebook posts about people who say that they struggle with the ever-mounting add-ons to these sorts of campaigns. And they struggle with not getting the base pledge, and in essence, that's what a lot of these campaigns are designed to do. Try to get you to spend as much as they can. They make a bigger profit that way. But if you can't conceptualize even backing at the base pledge, I'm not saying you have to. If you're in love with what the additional content gives you, great. But it shouldn't feel like this compulsive need, or you're going to miss out on something if you don't. The base pledge, especially for CMON games, is always more than enough content. I guess you have to ask yourself, when was the last time you used that Kickstarter expansion content more than 3 times? I also envision the draw of that $220 pledge is for those of us who played with action figures as a kid and now wanted to do it again, but make it seem like we weren't and we were playing a board game. Which, hey, that might be a good enough reason for you. On to reason number 4, and this might seem like a weird one, but Go with me on this one. And that's if you hate Nuns on the Run. If you haven't heard of it, it's this funny little game where you're little nuns in training trying to sneak around the abbey at night and not get caught by the headmistresses. Nothing in common with this game, theme-wise. But there are a couple parallels between the two that I think some people might enjoy and some people might hate. And I say this because of my girlfriend. She hates Nuns on the Run. She's wrong, but she still hates it. And I can see her not liking Masters of the Universe for a few of the same reasons. Now, these aren't that prevalent in the design, to be fair, but still worth talking about. I gotta fill up these 5 reasons somehow, right? And it mainly comes down to programming, needing to visualize what things will happen on a future turn, and also dealing with a line of sight mechanic that isn't necessarily the most intuitive. The line of sight, for example, is from the closest hex point to the next closest hex point of wherever you're trying to aim at. And it's not that intuitive because even the example that they give in the rule book, which is a good example because it shows what they're trying to get, I think, well, no, that character can clearly see the other character. So if you're somebody who hates these sort of specific line of sight sections, you might find that annoying and it might detract from your experience. Plus the slight programming aspect where you have to determine when is the correct time for your characters to activate. I know it's not really programming in the sense of like Robo Rally or you having to map out every single one of your moves in advance, but you still need to visualize what will happen on future turns. And if you hate visualizing these sorts of things, or if you're the type of person who needs to pick up a polyomino and shift it around your board to see where it could go before deciding if you're going to pick it, rather than being able to see it and then implement it, you also might find this aspect of it pretty frustrating. These really aren't big deals for me. In fact, I think they're kind of silly to even consider and that they're a big deal for anyone. But I know that my girlfriend would probably hit me for saying that. And I also think that she might be deterred because of these elements, which is why it's reason number 4, because maybe it applies to you or could apply to people whom you generally game with. Now, reason number 3 is you don't enjoy one versus many. This is a one versus many game. I know it says it's one versus many or cooperative, but I find with these things, like any game that adds an addendum of a 2-player variant at the back of their rule book, you know it's not really meant to be played with 2 players. I think for this to be the optimal experience, it's not really meant to be cooperative. It's meant to be one versus all. So if you don't enjoy those, you may not enjoy this one either. Because my main issue with one versus all, and it's kind of the same issue that I have with Zombicide if you're playing with more than 3 people, is that it's kind of boring to only control one character. While the controller gets to set up all these big plans and throw a villain at you here and some minions here, you get to choose that you're going first and do your 2 actions, and then you get to wait while everyone else has a back and forth. So if you, on your turn, roll your dice and they don't hit, well, that's all you got to do on that turn. I also think that one versus many are significantly harder to get to the table with new players, as are any games that have asymmetrical win conditions, because you kind of have to teach the game twice. Or you and your friends just never branch out and try the different roles, because there are still going to be so many different heroes to explore and so many different abilities to explore. And that leads me to you as the person who's interested in buying the game. You will be responsible for the setup, for the instructions, for monitoring the gameplay and answering questions. And I find that this often puts you in the role of dungeon master rather than an equal party around the table. And I just feel like the feeling of always being that dungeon master, always managing the controller, will ultimately always fall on you, the person buying this game or contemplating it. And if that's not your jam, or you feel like it's less fun to have that responsibility consistently thrust upon you, then you may want to rethink. Whenever I'm in that role, I feel like I always have to waste time making sure my friends are enjoying themselves rather than committing my full energy into crushing their hearts and souls. So if you think you're going to dislike always falling into that role, well, just make sure, if you're getting it, that you won't. Reason number 2 is you're still angry about the CMON Time Machine debacle. Has the CMON embargo been lifted for you yet? Is this game exciting enough to tempt you back over to the dark side? Now, this might feel like a weak reason to some of you, and maybe it is. Maybe it shouldn't be up here at number 2. But as much as I love the games that CMON produces, oftentimes it feels like they are completely okay with taking their customers for all that they're worth and then screwing them over without a second thought. And perhaps screwing them over is too harsh a language. We're talking about toys here. But probably every campaign, or okay, maybe that's a hyperbole, but a lot of campaigns within recent memory, I can think of reasons why people have gotten legitimately upset. Campaigns that I've been a part of. In Trudvang, people were upset about the restructuring of the game, claiming that it was becoming a game that they hadn't signed up for. The development took too long, elements that they thought were unique were completely replaced, the play session time changed drastically, the bag building element, which a lot of people were excited for, was reduced to not as significant a part of the gameplay, making those $15 plastic tokens that they sold, and which I personally bought, much less significant to own. I mean, honestly, I think it's better to take a year and to develop the game further if you feel like it's a mediocre game and turn it into something that you're proud of. Like, that seems great to me. But I can also see the reasons why people did get upset. With the CMON Comics campaign, people were annoyed that they were hiding gameplay content behind these comics, and in order to get the gameplay, you also had to buy the comics. I pledged $1 for the comics because I wanted to get the additional Rising Sun content, but I ended up not getting anything because I didn't want to pay the $50 for a stack of cards after shipping, or whatever it was. I think $50 is a little bit much, but it was something around $35, which just wasn't worth it. For Marvel United, everyone got so upset that the base game was going to be in Target or Walmart before backers ever got their hands on their pledge. Even for Ankh, people were upset that the Pharaoh expansion included the pharaohs for all the 10 gods, 5 of which you get in the Pantheon expansion, and there wasn't a way to just get the Pharaoh expansion without that additional content and paying for that additional content if you were only interested in getting the base game and the Pharaoh expansion. And for the Time Machine, which I was very upset about, people purchased items. I was one of these people. Set an alarm, waited right as the pledge manager opened. I had organized a group buy for people who weren't able to have access to the pledge manager, just on the Toronto Board Game Swap group that I'm a part of. And I was helping people get things that they were excited about, and so I felt personally responsible for these things. I was quick on the draw. I got the more sought out items into my cart, like the Guild Masters box for Arcadia, and paid for it. Checked out, done. I was in and out like a ninja, prepared for this, trained for this, and bought the items that everybody wanted to get. It was very exciting. And then, after being exclusively told by CMON that yes, you can buy things and you can then go back in and buy more things, I went in to browse their Zombicide content for my friend Zach, who has a lot of Zombicide stuff, just to give him a list, to let him know if he wanted anything, I could pick it up for him. And when I was in there, things that I'd already paid for, that my credit card had already been charged for, started being removed from my account. Other people were buying my things, ripping them out of my hands as I held the bag with my receipt saying, no, you can't do that. So I ultimately lost a bunch of stuff. And when I contacted CMON, I said, hey, this isn't right. I've already paid you for it. What are you going to do about this? How can you go about making this right? They basically said, you might as well spend the money that you already spent on different things. I said, okay, well, what about the things that I bought? And they said, it's gone now. It's like, well, is there any record of being able to get it? No, we're not doing anything for you. I mean, time and time again, CMON does these sorts of things. And I swore to myself, I said, I'm so angry. I'm never gonna back their campaigns again. I'm gonna vote with my wallet. Because I was really upset at feeling mistreated by the company, and I know I wasn't alone in that feeling, and felt like their customer service didn't give one single care about trying to make it right in some way. Ultimately, most people's experiences with their campaigns boils down to CMON's way or get the Skeletor out. deal with it and move on, because we're so big, people will back us no matter what, that we can do literally anything we want without any major repercussions. So no, we're not going to go out of our way to make things better for you. Deal with it. You're going to buy our stuff anyway. And yeah, I've dealt with it because I really wanted Ankh. They make some good games. So I am over it. And I still like the company because of what it produces, but I still have a sour taste in my mouth reliving this unpleasant experience. So when you decide to get this game, make sure you are getting it for you, because you think it looks cool and you've decided it will enrich your life. And if that feeling doesn't override any previous negative feelings you may have associated with the company, well then, hey, you know what? That's okay too. It's all right to vote with your wallet. I mean, I've forgiven, and I'm still pretty high on CMON as a company because of the quality of game that they produce, but also I'm not forgetting. And I'm not gonna give them my heart just to have it stomped on all over again. But just remember that this sort of thing does come with the territory. And if you're unable to roll with the punches, whatever punches may come down the line from the company's bottom line, well then maybe you should reconsider. I've belabored this point long enough. You get what I'm saying. If this sort of thing happens and it makes you upset, will that ruin your experience of the game? Now, conversely, the number one reason why you shouldn't back Masters of the Universe, and this one is the biggest one for me, you're only buying it because it's a CMON product. Because this is absolutely what I want to do. And I have done it in the past with Massive Darkness 2. I think CMON provides a different sort of hype train, at least in my brain. I don't think they necessarily rely on the fear of missing out more than any other company. I'm not saying that they don't rely on it. You'll see the add-ons, they very much do. But I know that I like CMON games. Come on, games, get into my shopping cart. I did a little publisher challenge where I organized my collection based on publisher, and just to see how many I have of each one, I thought it would be fun to know. And I realized I own more CMON games than I do from any other company by a significant margin. And I truly believe that the base pledge of a CMON Kickstarter is usually a pretty good value. And that's saying something from cheapy me over here. Their games are usually around the same price point when they hit retail after you factor in the tax. And so basically, instead of paying for the shipping, you're paying for a whole whack of stretch goals. And the stretch goals are usually pretty plentiful and enjoyable. I still think this holds true, even with the $110 extra bump price tag versus their usual $100 price tag. So my primary draw into backing this game was, oh, it's CMON? Yeah, okay. That's it. Not having anything to do with Masters of the Universe, not having anything to do with the gameplay. I don't even know if I like one versus all that much. And yet I was this close to backing it sight unseen. And really, if it hadn't been for that $10 price bump from 100 to 110, where I thought, no, you greedy Gus, I'm not falling for that one, I probably would have. And just because you back it doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to be interested in it down the line. I can't tell you how many Massive Darkness updates I have not read or been not interested in at all. Even when they're trying to explain the rules to me and teach me about this game that I purchased, I just say, I'll think about it when it gets here. I didn't really care about it when I backed, and I don't really care about it now. I mean, I think I'm still going to enjoy the game, don't get me wrong. It seems like Zombicide meets Diablo, which that is very appealing to me. But I still haven't gotten excited about it in a way where I'm convinced that it was the right decision for me to make. Maybe I could have saved that money for something else that I was truly frothing at the mouth for with excitement. Honestly, I'm probably more interested in Masters of the Universe than I am Massive Darkness, but that's what I decided to ultimately spend my money on. And so probably won't end up getting this one. So there you go. Those are my 5 reasons you shouldn't back. Have I offended you beyond reproach? Or are you feeling the pull of your wallet a little less than before? I'd love to hear your own reasons why you're backing and why you're not. And if you could all convince me in the comments section to get this game, I'm sure I would enjoy that as well. But I really, truly believe, especially with my ever-shrinking amount of storage space, that I want to be actively pumped when I purchase Kickstarters. Because they're a significant investment, at least for me. It's kind of like consent. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, well then it's not something that I want to be participating in. Anyway, that's it. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Really does mean a lot. If you wouldn't mind hitting that like button on your way out and possibly throwing me a subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Helps the channel grow. I'd love you forever. I appreciate you all being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Once again, my name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, so Eternia! I think he does that. I don't even know He-Man's catchphrase. Bye.